Hello, sixth graders. Today we are going to be looking at pronouns and their antecedents. So your title on top of your next available page is antecedents. We are not using any pages in our packet today. We are just going to be taking notes. Okay, so all you need is a pencil or pen, something to write with in your composition notebook. So when you, from now on, see the word antecedent, I kind of want you to think of the word descendant. So I'm going to put that up in parentheses here. Descendant. Okay, if you know what this word means, it means it's kind of a following of something from before, or a lot of the times it's used with relatives. So you're a descendant of your parents, a descendant of your grandparents. So it's saying like who has come before you, and kind of where your background is from. So antecedents, when dealing with pronouns, is the original word that pronouns are replacing in a sentence. So remember, pronouns we talked about in the last lesson are very common, general, he, she, it, they. So antecedents are the actual person or thing or people that are being talked about in the sentence. So we have a few definitions to write down here. We're going to review what a pronoun is. I did that again. Pronoun. Takes the place of one or more nouns. And their main job is to keep us from having to repeat the same noun over and over again in a sentence. So if you were talking, or let's say I was talking in a sentence, and I'm saying Mrs. Hurst took the garbage out, Mrs. Hurst then did the dishes, but then Mrs. Hurst forgot to add a pan that was on the stove into the sink. So then Mrs. Hurst added it in. Well, you're repeating that same noun over and over. And a lot of the times we would say, Mrs. Hurst took the garbage out, and then she went in and did the dishes, but then she realized she forgot a pan on the stove. So pronouns take the place of those nouns, and they keep us from having to repeat the same noun in a sentence. So, and then obviously we know what the word singular means. So singular pronoun, it's just one person or thing. Okay, she, he, it, just one person or thing. Plural pronoun, more than one person or thing. I'm going to do a slash instead of the word or to save some room here. So we have we, us, they, them as examples of that. Okay, these are things we already know, but they do kind of help us to figure out what the antecedent is based off of what we know with this prior knowledge here. So here is where the antecedent part comes in. So I want you to write down a pronoun takes its meaning from the noun it replaces. Just like I was using the Mrs. Hurst example in the dishes and the garbage, takes the noun from the, or takes the meaning from the noun it replaces. That noun that the pronoun refers to is called an antecedent. I'm going to underline that for the term. So it is, let me give you an example here. An example Mrs. Hurst took the garbage out, but then realized, move it up a little here, she forgot a bag. Okay, now when you're looking through this sentence and you find the pronoun, you notice that she is the pronoun, and I'm going to label this the pronoun. Okay, now what is this noun replacing? This pronoun is replacing Mrs. Hurst. So Mrs. Hurst would then be the antecedent in the sentence. Okay, so it's the original noun that pronoun is replacing, who that pronoun is referring to. So when you are trying to find the antecedents, pronouns, or a couple tips here, pronouns must agree with, and with, this is a shortened way to write the word with the antecedent. So in here, I wouldn't write we if I'm talking about Mrs. Hurst. Mrs. Hurst took the garbage out, but then we realized she forgot a bag. Well, could make sense, but in this case, for the antecedent, Mrs. Hurst is only one person. So we shouldn't be using the word we or us or they when we're talking about one person. And that's what this means. Make sure that singular and singular are matched up, plural and plural are matched up. And then also the correct gender of the person or the thing that's being talked about in the sentence. So that's what I just got done here saying. Same in number, which means singular or plural. And gender as the noun it replaces. Because if you're going to use a shorthand version of the actual noun that's being talked about, you don't want to confuse your readers, or you don't want to be confused as a reader if you're not using it in the correct way. So it's not a singular and a singular, it's a mixture of singular and plural, or it's talking about Mrs. Hurst, but then it says he. Okay, so those two right there would agree with each other. They're both singular, and they're both talking about the same gender. So now, next part, I know this is a lot, but this is all we're doing today. Pronouns can have more than one antecedent. So if you see the word they, or us, or we in a sentence, you're going to find all of the people or the things that are being referred to with they. So if they was used later on in a sentence, or the sentence after the original noun was mentioned, you want to make sure that you find all of the people that they is referring to. So then I kind of give you a clue in the next point here in the last part of the notes we're going to write down. Antecedent, or the antecedent in a sentence, doesn't actually have to be in the same sentence as the pronoun or the noun that it's referring to. So it doesn't have to be in the same sentence as the pronoun. It could be mentioned in the sentence after, the sentence before, the paragraph after, the paragraph before. If you were to look in your independent reading book right now, you would probably notice that the characters that are being talked about in that book, their name is not mentioned all the time in the book. Every time they say something or do something, the author does not list their name. The majority of the time, the author starts out the book and maybe sprinkles throughout the book the person's name, or maybe sometimes in the said statement after they say a quote. But a lot of the times they will just use pronouns. And because they're using those pronouns, and because they mentioned them earlier in the book, you as the reader, you know who they're referring to in your book when they're talking about she. They're probably talking about the main character that was mentioned before that the book is about. So you're able to understand who she is referring to. And that's kind of what this is saying here. So the antecedent doesn't always have to be in every sentence, and it doesn't always have to be in the same sentence as the pronoun that it's referring to. It could even be in a totally different part of the text, a totally different part of the book, beginning of the book versus end of the book with the pronoun. Okay? So I'm going to zoom out here so you can see all of the notes. Hopefully I can do that. And if you need to pause this to look back at your notes, you can. Otherwise, I'll pause, or I'll put this here so you can see the top part again. Pause it if you need to finish the notes. Otherwise, I will move it down. You can pause it here if you need to finish the notes down at the bottom. And then this is all we're doing today.